Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? And shout out to all my cerebralites. It's me, the Cerebral Diva, back with another story time. And I think this is probably going to be my first story time in about maybe 2 weeks or so. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. If you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like and make sure you comment. All right, so with that being said, you guys, we're going to dive right into the story time. And we're going to talk about a time that I was on my Jocelyn Hernandez. You guys remember the story a year or so ago where Jocelyn poured bleach all over Stevie J's clothes? Okay, this is my Jocelyn moment. So I was and if you're new to my channel, please go back and listen to some of my previous story times, because this particular story time is related to the revenge I slept with my boyfriend's father story time. So I'm talking about the same guy. So this particular story is definitely not a point in time that I'm proud of. I don't consider it something I had to go through. I consider it something I had to grow through. And yeah, it's not something that I'm condoning. Not something that I'm making light of. Not something that I would do today. But at this particular time, I was just so angry that it seemed like a logical thing to do. So all right, you guys. So here we go. So I was dating this guy, and he and I were oil and water. We were just completely different people, and I knew that. You know, I'm a very structured, very regimented person. You know, I pretty much go to sleep at the same time. I go to the gym at the same time. You know, I'm very ritualistic in that particular sense. Now, this was a guy who painted outside the lines. He didn't believe in rules. He sort of lived life in the moment. And that was something I loved about him, but there was something about him that was also something about him that terrified me, because it felt unstable. So, and I don't mean mentally unstable. It felt unstable in the sense that how can I create a future with a person who doesn't really have structure? How can I save? How can I buy a house? How can I do a lot of the things that you imagine yourself doing with your respective partner if that partner doesn't necessarily have the discipline to do some of those things? So we were just opposites. You know, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I've never drank in my entire life, believe it or not. I'm just, that's not my thing. And he was the opposite. You know, he liked to have a good time. He liked to drink. He liked to party. And I was cool with that. At least I thought I was. And so we kept having issues with communication. Communication it's paramount for me. It's just one of those things where it's not even about the communication to an extent. It's about the respect that you show for me when you communicate. So we kept having issues with him not calling and not being in communication. And one of the things that he would always say is that, you know, my phone's not working. My phone doesn't get a signal. So I believe Sprint at this particular time was having a really good deal. So I decided to add another line onto my account for him and get him a new phone. Something I would never do today. And help to alleviate that problem. So I got him a new phone, which he was responsible for paying the bill for. So after getting him that phone, you know, we hit a stride, and, you know, things were, you know, going well for the most part. But he had this friend that I could not stand. I couldn't stand this guy because I knew that this guy was a bad influence. Now, I'm a person who believes in autonomy. I don't necessarily believe that a person can control another human being, an adult in particular, or grown man in particular. But I do believe that true friends will steer their friends away from things that they know are detrimental to them. And I don't believe that this guy was that guy. I think that he was the opposite, where he encouraged and sort of steered him in the direction of things that he knew were detrimental, not just for my boyfriend, but for our relationship. So this one particular night, like we would go out often together, but sometimes we would go out with our respective friends, our groups of friends. You know, he had his group of friends, I had my group of friends. And on this particular night, we both decided that we were going to go out individually. He was going to go with his friends. I was going to go with mine. So I drove. His friends came and picked him up. And so we said our goodbyes. He leaves with his friends. I hop in my car. I go to the city to meet my friends. And then we go out. Now, before we left the house, we'd have this conversation. He told me to be back by 1 p.m. And I told him I would. And I told him to make sure that he was back by 1 p.m. So that was the agreement. That we both would be home by 1. So I apologize, you guys, for that alert. So I go out with my friends. I'm having a decent time for the most part, but like I said earlier, I don't drink or smoke, so I guess my good time is tempered to some degree, because when you're a person who's sober, sometimes it's a little difficult being around drunk people. So we're out, and around maybe 11:30ish, 11:45 somewhere, I said to my friends, okay, you guys, I'm going to actually get ready to get out of here. You know, he told me to be home by 1, so I want to make sure that I'm punctual. So I'm like, I'll see you guys in a little bit. I'll see you guys later. So I leave, I hop in the car. You know, I'm driving home and I'm sitting there thinking about the relationship and, you know, how I want to make it better. And then this light bulb pops into my head, like, do something special. Like, since you're going home, he's going to be meeting you there. Why don't you cook dinner tonight and have like a romantic dinner? So there's a 24-hour grocery store just a stone's throw away from my house. So I stopped by the grocery store. I grab steaks and I grab garlic bread, I grab Caesar salad, I grab baked potatoes, sour cream, you know, all of this stuff. I'm going to prepare like a steak dinner, a late night steak dinner. And then I grab stuff to make like strawberry shortcake, something that was going to be easy, quick, and simple. So I get home, I jump in the shower, you know, get prepared, because, you know, there's only a small window between the time that he gets home and the time that I have to prepare this dinner. So I'm cooking, and as I'm cooking, I'm noticing, oh my God, it's getting closer and closer to 1 o'clock. So about 1:15, I'm done cooking, and he still isn't home. So, okay, I'll give him a 15-minute grace period, no big deal. So 1:30, he still isn't home. Not only is he not home, but he hasn't called. So 1:45, he still isn't there. So around 2 o'clock, I'm officially pissed. Because not only is he not there, but he is not even giving me the respect or the courtesy of a phone call. So at this particular point, I'm just sitting there. You know, you start asking yourself, like, what am I doing? Why are you with this person? What are you getting from this? You know, because when I really stopped to think about the relationship, it was a relationship based in superficiality. We didn't really have anything in common. It was one of those relationships where I felt more like a mentor or a life coach than a girlfriend. So I was sitting there asking myself, like, what are you doing? You know this is going nowhere. You know, I'm having this sort of inter-dialogue with myself about this relationship. And I realized in that instance, like, really the only thing that was fueling the relationship was the fact that people kept telling me how great we looked together. You guys should be on magazine covers together. Like, all of this stuff that people were saying to me was making me feel like, I don't know, it was sort of feeding my narcissism. And so in that moment that I was sitting there realizing that this man didn't call, didn't have enough respect to show up on time, after this was something that he had told me to do. He told me to be home by 1 o'clock. I'm not the one who came up with this plan. He did. So I just started getting pissed. And the more and more pissed I became, the more volatile I became. So I'm just a powder keg, literally sitting in my living room. And at some point, I decided to just leave the food out, and I went and like, well, if he comes, he can eat whatever he wants to eat, but I'm not going to bother putting it away or wrapping it up. He'll get it however he gets it, because this is what you get when you're inconsiderate. So I lay down, and it's about 3 o'clock, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, it's 3 o'clock, and this man still hasn't had enough respect to call. So by that time, I begin to fall asleep. When I wake up again, it's about 5, maybe 4:30ish. So at that time, I wake up and I look at my phone. The first thing I'm checking for to see is if there's a missed call, and there are no missed calls. When I call him, his phone is going to voicemail on the first ring. So that's only adding to my agitation. So at this point, I go upstairs to my kitchen. I go into the pantry. I pull out the trash bags. And I just grab every single piece of clothing that he owned and I put it all into these trash bags. So I took the clothes and dragged them out to my car because the bags were really heavy. So I dragged them out to the car. I loaded them in my car. The first place I went to was his dad's house because I'm figuring, okay, if he's not here, maybe he's at his father's house. So he wasn't there. So I took one bag of clothing at his dad's house, and then I dumped it out on the front lawn of the apartment complex where his dad lived, and I got my chubby checker on. I started doing the twist, because I wanted to put grass stains in every single thing that he owned. And so I'm doing the twist on all of his best clothing. And to make sure that the clothes were soiled, I didn't have anything else. So I went to my car, and the only thing I had in my car was a bottle of wiper fluid, windshield wiper fluid. So I doused the clothes with the wiper fluid, and then I did the twist for about maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. And then I felt gratified. So I got back in my car, and then there was still another bag. So I get the second bag of clothing, and then I take it back to my place, and then I grab a bottle of bleach, and then I drive because obviously I don't want this mess near where I live. So I take it around the block, I dump out the clothes, and then I pour a bottle of bleach all over his tennis shoes, all over his fitted hats, and all that, the stuff that he loved. I poured bleach all over every single piece. I needed to make sure everything was damaged. And then I felt vindicated. I got back in my car. I drove home, and I let out a sigh of relief. I'm like, woosah, woosah. Because at that moment I knew, like, there was no coming back from what I just done. So as I'm sitting there sort of relishing in my vengeance, there's a knock at my window. And I'm like, who the hell is knocking at my window? So I run to the window and I pull back the curtain, and there's my man. And he has his hands out like baby, let me in, because it's winter during this time, so it's really cold. It's like, baby, let me in. I've been sleeping in the garage all night. I called you and you weren't answering the phone. I've been knocking on the window and you weren't answering. He's like, I've been in the garage because I couldn't get in. I lost my keys. So long story short, while I was upstairs cooking, he had been apparently, because the way my condo was set up, there's a security door and then there's the main door. And unless you're able to access the security door, then you cannot knock on my unit. And so since he could knock on the unit because he didn't have his keys to access the common hallway, he was knocking on the window downstairs, but because it was so cold, he was only able to be, it was freezing, you guys. He was only able to sort of knock in these short spurts. Now I'm upstairs cooking dinner. I have absolutely no idea that he's actually knocking at the window. So long story short, I basically destroyed my boyfriend's clothing, and he didn't deserve it. At least not that time. He didn't deserve it. So I opened the door and he's like, babe, I've been trying to call you. I've been trying to communicate with you. I know, please don't be pissed. He's being super sweet. And the whole time he's apologizing to me, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh my God, I've just destroyed every single piece of clothing that this man owns. Like, what? I don't know what to say. So we're sitting there talking, and then I just said, babe, I was pissed off at you and I did something that I'm not proud of. And he's like, what did you do? And so I told him what I did, and he runs over to the closet and he looks and he sees like none of his stuff in the closet. And the one thing I can say about this man is that where I was super, super emotional, in the moments where I was super emotional, he was always so even keeled. And when he looked at it, he's like, babe, I can't believe you did that. You know, that was the extent of his anger. He's like, babe, I can't believe you do, like, why would you do that? So he's talking to me about it. And the fact that he's being so sensible and so logical, it's making me feel even worse, because if he'd gotten boisterous, at least I would have felt somewhat justified in my actions. But because he's being so amiable in that particular moment, it's just like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person, a terrible human being. So long story short, I bleached my man's clothes and he didn't deserve it. Now, to atone for this grievance, I probably spent the next 2 months, buying him pieces, a couple pieces a week to make up for what I'd done. But it was definitely a learning experience to not act out emotionally in the moment, because for the most part, you will regret it. And I learned that lesson the hard way. Yeah, don't bleach your man's clothes. Just let him go, you guys. If you're not happy, if the relationship isn't working, don't take out your anger and frustration on his belongings or his possessions. Just give him his stuff and let him go. All right, you guys. So that's it for this story time. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure, if you've ever been through a situation similar, if you're a bleacher, I definitely want to hear your comments as well. So make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you share. What else is there? Follow me across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. I'm all over the place. And as always, in closing, remember to live better, love harder, and definitely think smarter than I did in this story time, you guys. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.